Okay.
Yellow.
Hi. What's up?
Nothing much. Just wanted to talk to you about your background, if you don't mind.
Sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, why specifically like, why are you against abortions?
Well, because I'm against killing alive human beings.
Is that in all instances or just like abortions?
In all instances, I have exceptions for like self-defense,
Mm-hmm.
like those kind of cases, but in those instances. Oh wait, and except for essay.
Okay, what about somebody who's like brain dead? Would you be okay with them being killed?
I don't consider brain dead people alive. So
Sure,
I
but their
I don't
bodies
think
would still be alive, right?
yeah, so to me brain death is death even if they're being kept alive by ventilators or by machines. I don't think so. If do I care if a brain death person is being killed? No, I don't, because I don't think they're alive.
Fair, fair. What specifically about them being brain dead? Like, what's the specific thing that means that they're dead? Like, I know their brain's not working, but if their body's working and their brain is has
Yeah.
finished, what about that makes them dead in your mind?
So brain death, people announce people to be brain death when there's no longer any uh any brain activities in the brain. Sorry, I'm just looking at the poll. So, brain death is when there's no longer any brain function, brain activity. That's what brain death is. Pretty sure.
Okay, so would you be okay with abortions prior to brain activity in a fetus?
Actually, I am. I stretch it like I have a like I'm okay with the Texas ban. I have my views on abortion are very lenient. I just came here to like
Well,
post the
wait, the
facts.
Texas ban, the Texas ban is like a full ban. Like they don't even make exceptions for SA.
I thought they have a 5 week. I thought it was a heartbeat
They used to have a
ban.
heartbeat, but ever since Roe v. Wade was overturned, Texas went full restriction.
Oh, okay. Well, I was fine with what they had before, which was the 5 week ban, because I agree with like heartbeat. Like if you personally don't think it's alive without the brain activity or heartbeat, I won't hold you if that's your views. And that's actually a really valid view, because again, we have brain death. Like we have those markers in medicine to say this person is no longer alive because their brain is no longer functioning. So I agree with that line.
Sure. If we go under this logic, right, and we say that like fetuses are fully alive, they're fully formed humans that are fully deserving of rights. My only question to that would be, even if it has the right to like be living and whatnot, what gives it the right to utilize somebody's resources without consent?
um what gives it the right to utilize someone's oh, because it's a child. Like I have the same logic as a mother feeding her baby and using her arm or her ATP or her energy to take care of that kid. And if she doesn't, then it's neglect. So um I think it's because she's the she's the parent. And I feel like I know what you're gonna say. You're gonna say, what if she signs over her parental rights, right?
Nope, I don't really care one way or another about that. What I would respond to that is, why, like, a mother who's pregnant doesn't have to breastfeed if she doesn't want to. She can use formula, so she doesn't have to give her bodily resources if she doesn't want to give her bodily resources. What I ask is, there's no other instance in any of humanity where somebody is forced to utilize their bodily resources to keep another human alive, but you're saying that in the instance of pregnancy that they should be forced to do that.
Right, but we don't always have formula. For example, formula was invented in like, when was it invented? It was invented a while ago, and we've had formula shortages. And of course, like you wouldn't say the woman is you're not going to say in a sense like directly like you must give up your breast milk to keep this baby alive, but it is like insinuated that if you don't keep this baby alive, and you can. Jeff is not here today, y'all. He's home. Um, but so where was I going with this? So if you physically can, and you refuse to, and then the baby dies, that can be considered neglect.
If you
So
don't
like
give
formula.
it other care, but not just formula, there are other methods of feeding babies, like even if it like
Mm-hmm,
even if there are formula shortages, because there are, even during formula shortages, we have to understand there are women who can't produce lactate, so they physically can't breastfeed. There are single dads who have to feed their kids, like, so even during
mm-hmm.
formula shortages, we've come up with methods to feed children outside of breastfeeding.
Yeah, that's why I said if you're physically capable, and you are producing breast milk, there's nothing wrong. You're healthy. Like the same thing with pregnancy. If there's no complications, like if her life's in danger, that's a different thing. If it's a high risk pregnancy, that's a different thing. But if baby healthy, you're healthy, and you just want to kill the baby, or you're just refusing to give the baby food and basically let them starve to death, then that is just abuse. That's considered neglect here
Well,
in Canada. So
yeah, if you don't find it another means of sustainability, but in pregnancy, the only means is you. So why should they be I'm just wondering why they should be forced to carry this pregnancy to term when we don't hold this view anywhere else? Because like I said, in cases of breastfeeding, you can use
mm-hmm.
other methods to feed the kid. Nobody has ever been or legally would be forced to breastfeed. Like the governments physically can't legally regulate that. So I'm just wondering
Mm-hmm.
why in the instance of pregnancy then should they be forced to give their bodily resources?
I would just say the same way, like I know what you're saying, like someone else can always do this and there's other ways to feed, but when it comes to like a newborn baby, they don't really they have to have milk or formula. They can't eat solid foods. There's no other option, either milk or formula. And if you're a breastfeeding mother, like you're producing milk, and you're stranded somewhere and there's no other way to get formula, then you would be kind of obligated to obviously care for that child, and give them breast milk, because there's no other way to take care of the kid. And I know you're gonna say like, um, what are single fathers going to do, or what do women who don't produce breast milk gonna do? And that to me is comparable to scenarios to people who cannot take cannot go through pregnancy or cannot physically carry a baby. So that to me is like a medical thing.
Well, so I just want to mention that, like, there are other options other than milk. You can use things like Pedialyte. I think it's Enfalite is one of the other one. There's other brands of like rehydration solutions that are perfectly fine to feed to a baby for a couple of days to keep them alive while you find other methods of formula or milk.
Mm-hmm.
And also after 4 months, you can like finally puree food and give them food, right?
Okay,
They
so my
can.
question to you is, what if it's about bodily autonomy, right? What if the mother just doesn't want to do that? What if she's like, I know I have all these options, but I just don't want to I don't want to go look for Pedialyte or whatever it is you said,
Yeah, well,
and like she just refuses.
after the child is born, they now have like legal protections. So they're like legally
Mm.
you're forced to do things that would constitute not as neglect. So if she decides I don't want to care for it anymore, she just disengages her parental contract and gives the child up.
So
Um,
her bodily autonomy doesn't matter in that case.
well,
You don't think that matters?
because you can't utilize your bodily autonomy to infringe on somebody else's bodily autonomy. So after the child is born, the child now
Exactly.
has its own bodily autonomy. So
Okay,
they can
so you
infringe on
just
that.
said you cannot. So you think the child gains its own bodily autonomy after it's born?
Yeah, because that's when it becomes autonomous. It's not autonomous prior to that.
It's not autonomous prior to that. Hold on. I just want to get your definition of autonomous. So
Uh,
autonomous is what, the freedom to govern or control oneself.
well, in this case, it's the ability to live independently outside of the womb. That's when it now has its autonomy. Prior to that, it's only living because it's receiving basically life support
Is
from the
is
mother.
this your definition of autonomous, or like, cuz I'm reading something else?
I mean, it's the definition of autonomy and autonomous that we're using in this instance. But autonomous has multiple definitions. So, like, one is having the freedom to act independently. Now that it's born, it can act independently of the mother. Prior to that, it can't act independently of the mother.
I mean, the fetus can act in, like, fetuses move, like, when babies push on the mother's belly.
Sure, but if the
Like, that's
mother is
actually how
not,
we get our fingerprints, is by the fetus touching,
yes, but it's
moving
not
its own
independent,
body.
right? Because removal from the
Hmm.
mother, it will die. So it
So
can
now your
only do these
definition.
actions because
Okay.
it's depending on the mother's resources and depending on the mother to engage in homeostasis.
Okay. At what point do you think that happens all through pregnancy, or do you have like a cutoff point?
What happens all through pregnancy? It depending on the mother.
Because there are some stages in pregnancy where if you cut off resources from the mother and the fetus and the baby was removed, the baby would live, right?
Yes, as soon as it hits about 24 weeks is when you really have the best chance for viability. Yeah.
Okay, so would you say it has autonomy then? Because if it can
Once
live
it's
on its
removed, it does.
own.
Yeah. Even if it's not,
Mm.
it's viable. It's still utilizing the mother's resources to continue to grow. Right.
Yes, but
That's why there's a survival rate of, I think it's like 56% at 24 weeks, because it's still
mhm.
not fully viable yet.
Right, but babies use the mother's resources.
Correct,
So
but
so is it
they're
so
autonomous beings outside of the womb. They're not when they're
okay,
inside.
okay, let me get this straight. Sorry. Okay. So the reason it doesn't have rights is because you're saying it's not autonomous inside the womb,
I can
right?
if we want to grant it rights at conception, I can grant it rights at conception. It can have the right to life, but
Mod, please stop those polls. Sorry,
you
continue.
have to then substantiate why it has the right to another person's resources, because no other
Okay.
human can do has the right to it like the way a fetus does. So that's just special pleading at that point.
So to me, in pregnancy, like what happens is like the blood. So the first week of pregnancy is the mother isn't even giving the fetus anything in the first 2 weeks. That's why most women don't know they're pregnant. It's until the placenta forms and attaches that the blood nutrients starts to that the mother's blood basically goes to the fetus and they start exchanging nutrients that way. So I always give this analogy. It's almost like feeding your child. Like the fetus, it's not like you're donating blood, you're not donating any kidneys. You're just giving the child food to grow. So when you say it's utilizing the mother's resources, I will just compare that to the mother feeding her baby
So
outside of the
I
womb.
just want to mention that that's not entirely correct. It's about 3 to 5 days after conception that it starts absorbing nutrients from the mother, specifically from the endometrium, which is just like the lining of the uterus.
Yeah, 3 to 5 days, a week.
It's receiving. Well, you said it takes a couple weeks.
Yeah, I give it 2 weeks because implantation, we don't really know. That's like a week at least. So people don't really know the moment of conception. So I give it like a breath. But it takes a couple days, 3 to 5 days, a week. It takes some time before the mother and the fetus actually start exchanging nutrients. The fetus is still alive inside the mother for some time without the mother's help at all for a really brief time. But yeah, it does eventually attach to the mother, and then it starts exchanging nutrients. But basically, that my point with that was that um, I'm comparing pregnancy and the exchange of nutrients to feeding a baby. I'm trying to like say that that's kind of the relationship that's going on.
Yeah, but we've already went through this. There are methods to feed the baby that don't use your bodily resources, so there would be there's no connection there, right? If
Hmm.
the only way to feed the baby was through bodily resources, I would maybe understand that, but there's other methods. So if you
Okay,
don't want to use your, oh, go ahead.
do you believe there's a scenario where there's no other choice? Like even if it's outside the womb, like do you believe that there's some cases where there's no other option? Like
Sure, but like I said,
Yeah.
when it's outside of the womb, the baby now has its
Mhm.
own level of bodily autonomy. You can't infringe on that. Just like I couldn't prevent you from eating food, right? Even if I don't directly end your life, I
So,
can't stand in front of you and knock food out of your mouth every time
mhm.
you go to eat. That would be
So
considered.
is your argument bodily autonomy, or is it using resources? Because I think we've just circled back to
Well,
bodily
using
autonomy.
the ability to decide what happens to your resources is a part of bodily autonomy. You get to decide
Right.
what happens
So
to your bodily resources at the end of
so
the day.
we right. So we acknowledge that there's some cases where like they don't have any choice but to use the mother's resources. And then you said it's because well, now the fetus is autonomous, right?
Correct. It has its own bodily autonomy now that it's autonomous and outside of the womb.
Okay. So my definition of autonomous, I just googled autonomous, and it says having the freedom to govern itself or control its own affairs. Would you
So
say
that's
like
you just read the
mhm,
definition when it comes to a country.
okay,
This isn't a country.
good
This is
point.
a
Um
person, a human.
wait, it does it actually say
Yes, it
oh,
says
of a country of a
yeah.
country.
Autonomous
So
just means the
autonomous
right or power of self-government
mhm,
or like under carrying on something without outside control. That's a better way. Or like a better one is like existing independently of something else.
mm.
Like that's the best way to look at it.
Okay, I'm looking at frontiers.org. Frontier, lol. It says personal autonomy in humans is commonly understood as this type of governance or self-determination.
Yeah, that's when we're looking at like autonomy, but autonomy and autonomous are they just mean different things. So like we can talk about autonomous when it comes to like for an example, like a robot that can exist without a human's input. Like you can run it without a controller, right? That's an autonomous
Hmm.
robot. It can work independently of you acting on it. A fetus cannot live independently of the mother until it becomes viable. At the viability stage, you can remove it and now it can live on its own. So now it's engaged in its ability to be autonomous. But prior to that, it physically can't exist without the mother's resources.
Right, but there is a stage where it can. Like that's what viability is, right?
Yeah, that's what I said. Viability, it can exist without the
So are
mother's
you
resources.
against abortion? Are you against abortion before after 21 weeks?
I don't think there should be any governmental restrictions, much like your like I actually agree with the laws in your country. I think it should be up to the people and the doctors. But after 24 weeks, there are abortion methods that don't kill the fetus. So they can have either an induction abortion or a hysterotomy abortion. I believe those are the methods we should prioritize after 24 weeks. But I just believe that if people don't consent to being pregnant, they shouldn't be forced
So
to be pregnant.
you mean like induced birth?
Yeah, it's an induction abortion.
Okay. 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 Okay.
But prior to
Okay.
24 weeks, I don't care what you do because I don't believe the fetus. A, I don't believe the fetus is a person yet, and B,
Mhm.
I don't care if we just kill a body, which I believe is all you're really killing prior to 24 weeks.
Because in my definition, abortion autonomy is like the ability, like individual, like someone being able to like move my arm if I want to. Like if I'm stuck in a cage and my arm movement is restricted, like the fetus's arm movement is restricted in the womb, I guess, because it's inside the womb. But if I'm stuck in the cage, am I still autonomous? I think I still am, because I can move my arm, I can find a way to get out of the cage myself. But if your definition of autonomous is like, can you um live on your own, then I think it just depends on our definition, because the fetus can have reflexes. I think that's at 6 weeks or 5 to 6 weeks that the brain starts to form. So my definition of autonomous is being able to use your own body to do whatever you want to do. So I don't know. Maybe we just have two different definitions of autonomy.
Well, I mean,
That
I'm using the definition from Merriam-Webster. I'm using like the second definition they have, which is where we start talking about autonomy in forms of like people, which is just existing
um
or capable of existing independently. And like I said, the fetus cannot exist independently. It physically can't up until
until 21 weeks.
21 weeks at like the earliest, but like that's like you're basically going to kill it if you take it out of 21 weeks. But yeah, once it can exist independently, I think we should favor methods of abortion that would keep the fetus alive. But prior to that, I don't see a reason why we should have to, especially when we look at like where the brain has developed up until that point. It doesn't have the ability to have a conscious human experience. So I don't know why I would value keeping it alive at that point.
You value consciousness?
I value a subjective, conscious human experience. Yeah, I think that's what we. I think that's very clearly what we value in humanity when we look at like how we've structured society and like how we structure laws and things like that.
Um. Okay. So what if you're not conscious then?
What do you mean? Like when?
Like when you're getting your tooth removed, anesthesia, when you're
Well,
asleep.
under anesthesia. Well, when you're asleep, you're still conscious, but even then, you still have the capability of engaging in that consciousness. You just need to be woken up, right? Like you still have the ability to utilize that consciousness. When you go under anesthesia, you go under a contract of I'm going to temporarily void my consciousness, but it's under the
Mm-hmm.
understanding that we're going to let you back up. So I think we should respect a previous conscious decision, but that's why in cases of like if I sign a do not resuscitate, I would respect somebody's previous conscious decision of when I die, if I go under, don't bring me back. Even if I have the ability to get my consciousness back, I don't want to come back. So
Okay, so
I would
you don't value present consciousness. You value previous consciousness.
present
Like
and
if
previous.
you.
I think if you have previous consciousness, when you go into a state of unconsciousness, we should respect what that
Mm-hmm.
previous consciousness wanted. But while you're currently conscious, I respect the wishes of your current conscious self because you're currently conscious. It's just future consciousness that I don't really care about. If you only
Oh,
have
oh.
future consciousness and you don't have the other two, I don't see the point.
Okay, so what about dead people that were previously conscious?
What about them?
Or so do you think like their rights? Do you think they have rights?
I mean, legally they do. I don't necessarily know that I think they should, because I believe that we're actually like killing more people by not utilizing the organs of people that have died. Uh,
Wait, you say legal? Wait, sorry, you said dead people have rights?
legally,
Is
yeah.
that what I just heard? What rights do they have?
Well, like you're not allowed to desecrate bodies. You're not allowed to remove bodies from their grave. You're not allowed to, do uncouth things with bodies. They have
Those
dead bodies
aren't,
have
but
legal protection.
those aren't dead people rights. Those are like laws that are telling people not to do things.
Yes, because
It's
we have respect for the dead. Like what would be the point of creating a law where we say you can't chop off the limbs of a dead body, right? You're not hurting anybody. The only reason to create that law would be to give rights to the dead body. That's also why we respect people's wishes with
Mhm.
wills, and once they're dead, we still engage in their wills because we give them a set of legal rights, even in death. In
Okay,
some countries
so
don't, but in America, at least, I know that's the way it works here.
okay, so if someone's in a coma, do you think like they should be allowed, like let's say they didn't sign anything and they had previous consciousness, do you think they should be allowed to kill them or no?
If you're so a When you're in a coma, you still have consciousness. That's why people in comas can oftentimes recite conversations that were had in the room. But if you go into a coma, and this just comes into a legality argument, but if you go into a coma in America and you have they can't find your family, and they can't find they don't know who you are, and they can't find any written recourse that you don't want to die, the doctors are
Mhm.
given the leeway to pull the plug if they feel it's appropriate.
Okay, so these rights that you say, like, do you think these people have rights because they were previously conscious or because they're just human?
Well, so I do believe there are sets of like human rights. Like I would say bodily autonomy and your right to life are two inherent human rights. Like they're things that we should grant all humans that can engage in them. But other than that, I don't think we have any like inherent rights. I think those would be the only two that would be inherent.
You don't think humans have any? Sorry, what were the two you said that were inherent
The right to bodily autonomy and the right to life, I think, would be the only two inherent rights.
to human beings?
Hmm. But those rights
Oh,
can't infringe on another human being's rights, because then you lose them. Your right to bodily autonomy and your right to life cannot infringe on another human's right to life or right to bodily autonomy.
okay. So I'm guessing you believe that the fetus's right to life is infringing on the mother's bodily autonomy, right?
Uh, yeah. Well, if it's not consensual, yeah. If she's pregnant
Um,
and willingly, then no, it doesn't impede on anything.
Well, you can't really consent to pregnancy, but I get what you mean. If she wants the baby,
Well, you can consent to
so
pregnancy once you find out you're pregnant. If as long as you continue to carry it and you're like, I want to carry it,
I
that's
mean,
consenting.
she can accept it. It's not like she can be like, she can't really choose. But yeah, yeah, in a sense, yeah, you can consent. But so you think like the fetus's life is infringing on the mother's bodily autonomy,
Yeah, if she does not want to be pregnant, yes.
but you don't think the mother's bodily autonomy is infringing on the fetus's life.
No, because she was the sentient being first. Rights are just social contracts, basically to explain how we as sentient beings interact with each other.
Okay.
So because
Okay.
she existed prior to the fetus, and because she didn't engage in any rights violations to create the fetus is now the aggressor.
Okay, but how the fetus is the aggressor by being, because the way the fetus came into existence was not by its own volition. It's not like it like forced its way into the mother. It was by the actions of like if it's consensual, like you just said, like if she consented to the act, then it's kind of her, she's the one who caused the fetus to exist, right?
You can say you can say that her engaging in pregnancy, her engaging in sex created a pregnancy, but the problem is
Mm-hmm.
that sex is not a rights violation. Having sex with someone, and also the fetus didn't exist when the sex was had, so her action didn't violate any rights. Now what happened is the first bit of rights violation would be something in taking her resources without her wanting it to. That's the initial rights violation.
Mm-hmm.
If the fetus existed when the sex happened, you could maybe make that argument, but because it doesn't, there's no way to make that argument that she's violating its rights by like engaging in
I
sex or anything like that.
mean, conception happens. Like I
It
don't
can
want to go
happen
into the
anywhere up to
nitty,
3 weeks. It can take up to 3 weeks.
conception or implantation.
Well, conception can take anywhere from a couple hours to like I think 20 like a day.
Yeah, so depending on how they conceive, it could happen instantly. It can take a couple hours.
Well, it can't
Conception
happen instantly
can,
because the fetuses still have to reach the like. It's not. It's sex happens first, right? The fetus
yeah,
doesn't exist until after the sex has happened.
right. I'm not gonna go into like the ways, because I'm thinking of something else, but like there's different ways of having sex, right? Like you can artificially inseminate. You can oral, like there's many ways that the egg and the sperm can come in. The moment the egg and the sperm come into contact, a baby is formed.
Well,
So,
no, sometimes it takes because
right.
the sperm still has to dissolve and the nucleus or the head of the sperm has to dissolve and then the nucleus has to enter the egg and combine with it. That can take anywhere to like up to a couple hours for even that to happen.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not instantaneous. So that's why I say, if there's not a being whose rights are being violated, then the first rights to be violated are the person who gets pregnant when they get
So
pregnant when
is
they
it
don't
like
want to be.
first come first serve? So your argument is just like the mother was here first, so therefore it's her rights over the baby.
I mean, yeah, in terms of rights violations, it's usually first come first serve. Yeah,
Okay, where does that logic apply anywhere else? Just give me one other example of
almost
this
everywhere.
first come
Almost everywhere. If I'm
first.
sitting in a chair and you push me over because you want to sit in the chair, you violated my rights because I was first sitting in the chair.
No, I think it's not about because you're first sitting on the chair. I think they violated your rights because they pushed you over. Because like it's
I was so
they
think about it this way. I was engaging in this space. I was the first
Mhm.
person in the space utilizing my autonomy. So for you to come and move me out of that space, you have now pushed me out. So I was the first, and then you moved me out to be the second, which violates my right to autonomy by you engaging in you removing me without my
Oh,
consent.
okay. Okay. I've never heard of this first come first serve ideology. It's interesting.
Well, because they can only
Like,
it can only really exist when there's beings being brought into existence, right? Like it's tough to really exist outside of that because we're all here first. But I would say if you're engaging in your bodily autonomy in any way, that's the first come. For me to now encroach on that would be a rights violation.
I know, but what I'm trying to say is like, how is the fetus encroaching on it when it didn't do anything? Like that person that pushed you, they went and they pushed you, you know? Like if some like
Mm-hmm.
it's like me oh, I love this analogy. It's like me kidnapping somebody and like driving them all the way to sea, like in a boat, and then I I they're stranded on my boat now, and then I'm like, "Yo, this is my boat. Get out." But like if I push them out,
Well, so the issue there would
they're
be the
obviously gonna drown.
kidnapping is a rights violation, right? We're equating the
Mhm.
kidnapping to getting pregnant, but getting pregnant is not a rights violation of a fetus. The kidnapping of somebody is. What I would say is you don't have to be actively aggressing to be considered an aggressor. So for example, by me buying iPhones, knowing that Apple utilizes child labor, I'm aggressing on those children because I'm engaging in that system, even though I'm not actively the one hurting them, right? I'm still assisting in their
Okay.
aggression. So even though a fetus isn't like active, if you don't want to give those resources and it takes them, it's now a being that is aggressing upon your rights.
Okay. Um I hear your point of view. I think we just have different definitions. I mean, I don't really have anything else to say. I
Well,
don't see the fetus as an aggressor because it's only an aggressor because the mother feels like she doesn't want the baby.
well, yeah. If you don't want to give me your blood and I take your blood, I'm aggressing on you.
Yeah, but there's no blood being don't like people.
No, but if
It's
she
not
the
like you're.
pregnant people are given calcium, like sometimes your bones will just break because you've given so much calcium to your fetus.
Yeah, but that's the body doing it. It's not like the fetus. This is like just biology. This is how pregnancy works. So it's it's just the fetus. This is why they tell people to take prenatal vitamins. By the way, is because they don't want that to happen to the mother. So
Do you think that the right to life, do you think that's a positive or negative right?
I don't. What do you mean? What's positive rights?
So positive rights are rights that require an active they require somebody to actively give you those rights. So for example, if I said healthcare was a right, right? I'm saying that somebody has to, like doctors have to provide healthcare to people. People have to be given
Mm-hmm.
that right. A negative right, the way you allow a negative right to exist is you just don't do anything. So the right to life in my view is a negative right. The way I would respect your right to life is I just don't do anything. I don't encroach upon that. But in
Yeah,
terms of pregnancy, we're basically saying that the right to life is now a positive right because a pregnant woman has to be doing something to allow that fetus to continue having that right.
No, 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 no. So I don't see it that way. Agree with you, and I say that the right to life is a negative right because I think like if you just leave the mother alone, you leave the fetus alone, nobody does anything, pregnancy will take its course, 9 months, birth will happen,
Well, that's
and
not
you
true because
don't
she has
have
to
to.
eat. Like you just said earlier, she has to take prenatal vitamins. Otherwise, she's gonna, like, bad things are gonna happen. Like, you have to do things when you're pregnant in order to maintain that. If we're saying it's
Mm.
a negative right, then she should be able to take the fetus out, leave it alone. Like, if she just have the ability to take it out, you don't touch it. That's still respecting its right to life.
See, I don't. So you said negative rights are like you don't do anything, right? Like you just leave it, you just let it
Correct. You
be.
need no outside
So
force to respect that right.
right. So pregnancy is a natural thing. So prenatal vitamins are literally just like they're supplements. You don't have to take them unless you want to. So it's not like mandatory. So if the mother didn't take prenatal vitamins and she had the baby, she can have the baby without prenatal vitamins. So she would just go through pregnancy, assuming everything goes well, and she doesn't have to lift her finger. She would eat food. She would do her everything she does as she usually does. She would bathe,
Well, what if she doesn't want
shower.
to eat food? Would you say then that a woman who's pregnant
Um,
should be allowed to stop eating completely and then when the fetus, because the fetus will die before she does, right? She can live a couple days, but the fetus will die way quicker because it needs those nutrients. So if she just stops eating and then the fetus dies, is that okay?
it, you. if she stops look so if she stops eating, the body will drain her dry, first of all,
The
to in
the
order to keep the fetus
the
alive. It
fetus
will,
will die
first of
before
all,
her. The fetus will absolutely die before her.
yeah, but she will be very weak.
Okay.
She will be very weak. But I don't think it should, I don't think, that's her prerogative. That's, like you said, that's kind of her body. So if she does, it's like, if, how people drink while pregnant, that is a that's not illegal. So, but is it recommended? No. Would I
Okay, so then
recommend she not eat? No.
so then what if instead of abortions, we don't have abortions anymore, but if a woman wants to end her pregnancy, she goes to the doctor's office, they put her in a
Mm-hmm.
room, and they regulate, they monitor her, and she just stops eating until the fetus dies. Then as soon as the fetus is dead, they give her food and nutrients to keep her alive. Would that be okay?
I think that would be very dumb, because
Why?
you're risking your life.
You risk your life in
Because
pregnancy. Any pregnancy
no,
can turn
because
fatal.
okay, you could say that with abortion. We could say you're risking your life in abortion. We could say that with anything.
Sure. That's
But
why I
what
don't
I'm
know why
trying
the
to
risking
say
your life
is,
aspect is one that we're worried about.
okay, so I can't control. It's not like you can force feed the mother. It's not like you can force her to eat. Like, you can't force. I can't, put her on a feeding tube if she doesn't want to eat. So, um, that would be, hmm. I would say that's her choice.
So then your only
And
issue with abortion, just confirming, is just that they are actively doing the killing. But if she just takes away the resources and the fetus dies, that's a okay. That's okay, and those are types of pregnancy enders that we would be okay with.
I don't think we should be recommending that at all. That's not safe at all for women to starve themselves into killing the baby. I know some people do some really crazy things, but that's not
Well, yeah, when you remove
a
abortion
I don't
access and all they have is those methods, some people are going to take them because they don't want to be pregnant.
mm, I mean, if that's not actively killing the child, like I said, I can't force her to eat food. Is that even possible? I don't think you can force them to eat.
In some
I've never heard
instances,
of.
but like no, usually you can't force anybody to eat food.
So if a pregnant mother, has that ever happened? A pregnant mother just refused to eat and, the baby died?
I mean,
I feel like that has never
I'm
happened.
sure it has in like some like in countries that aren't as developed as America, where people like either they get an abortion or they die and they can't.
Hmm. Interesting. Um well, yeah, no, I think it's just, I don't think you should force her to eat. So yeah, I guess, unless, if she's actively removing the fetus, or taking an abortion pill, then I'm against that. So
It just seems
yeah.
a little inconsistent. Like it just seems like you're totally fine with the fetus dying. You care only about how it
Well, I'm
dies.
not. It's not guaranteed that if she starves herself. I think it's dangerous for her to even do that. Whether or not the fetus is involved, whether or not the fetus dies first, I don't care. Just starving yourself is not a good. It's not a good thing. So I don't think she should do that. But if somebody wants to starve themselves, it's not like I can force them to not starve themselves. So um and I've never heard of that, so I'm just gonna look into if that's even ever happened, period. But
Oh, I don't know if it's
so
happened. It's a possibility.
hold on, let me, because I think in pregnancy, if the mother, because starvation takes 3 days without water, right? That's how long it takes for you to starve.
Yes, but
And the
you
mother,
wouldn't have to fully starve. You could eat small amounts. You just wouldn't eat enough to give the fetus nutrients.
okay.
That's why people with eating disorders, they can starve an unborn baby. That's why they tell you not to get pregnant with eating disorders.
Oh, it says so it says complications that happen are anemia, hypertension, premature delivery, or maternal death, or miscarriages.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that I don't recommend that. Please, guys, don't ever starve yourselves,
Well,
because
what do you think that's
it
gonna?
could lead to.
It's going
It
to
could lead
happen
to
if you.
prematernal. Yeah, it could lead to prematernal death, and it's just not good. Don't do it. Oh, you're saying what's going to happen if we ban abortions?
Well, it's a possibility. I'm sure that some people will resort to it, just like some people resort to back alley abortions because they have no other option.
See, again, this is their choice. If you don't starve yourselves, but if you choose to, like, you know what? I'm not even going to say anything. Just don't do it. Like, if they resort to doing that, that's a really dumb thing to do. I would say, like, I would just give them resources and say, like, there's other options. Like, like, we can support the woman through her pregnancy. We can we can offer, like, because I don't think, I think a lot of women are conflicted anyways when it comes to that, so I would just like support them and like
How
let
come
them know like
this? How
there's,
come this in your mind? Like this would be their choice, but abortion shouldn't be their choice.
because because she's doing that to herself.
What
Like
a,
abortion is only affecting, is mainly just affecting the fetus, right?
what about an abortion pill that just cuts off the supply of nutrients?
That's still affecting the fetus.
Well, it's doing the same thing that her not eating would do. It would just cut off this nutrient
Okay, but
supply.
it's not cutting off her supply of food. It's not like she's starving herself of nutrients. It's only starving the fetus. So it's only, again, it's only affecting the fetus in
Well,
an
no,
abortion.
the abortion pill has plenty of side effects, so it would still affect her.
Is it doing the same thing it's doing to the fetus? To her? Is that what's happening?
So it's just got to be an eye for an eye.
No, like what do you mean? So just because it affects the mother doesn't mean like it's the same thing. What I'm saying is like the fetus isn't, she's only affecting her own, like she's doing it to her body, she's starving herself, and then there's a byproduct, there's like an after effect. So that's just like the later consequence. It's not like she's directly killing the fetus, she's harming herself. I don't know why anybody would do that, but she's harming herself, and then it's kind of affecting the fetus, whereas in abortion she's just going straight to the fetus and killing the fetus directly. So, yeah, I'm against that. The reason I'm not against her starving herself is because we can't control. I cannot. I don't know how we would justify any sort of controlling that. It'd be like so, I can't say it on here, but like if someone were trying to like harm themselves, like cut themselves, I guess we would say she couldn't do that. So, and
Well,
like we would just get her like help, like mental help there.
I guess I'm just not seeing how you're linking your logic together, right? Because it seems like if there's something that the mother can do that would kill the fetus, that would go against your views that it's a human life and human life shouldn't be killed, even indirectly, right? But in this instance, even though it's indirectly, you're saying that this instance you can't control. I mean, technically you could force. I mean, if you catch her doing it, you shove a feeding tube down her throat. But you're saying that would be wrong, but forcing them to stay pregnant wouldn't be wrong.
Yeah, but it's like, why do we have all these resources to help people struggling with mental health? Like if somebody were cutting themselves, that's, their choice, I guess. But, and I'm sorry, trigger warning for anybody who's going through that. I'm
I mean,
I'm
I
just
I
trying to
even
say
believe that
like,
if people want to end their own lives, they should be able to.
oh,
We should not be able to
okay.
force somebody to stay alive that doesn't want to stay alive. We should be able to allow them to have doctor assisted life ending because it's their body, it's their choice what happens to it.
Okay. Okay. I mean, that makes sense now since you, I mean, that's an okay stance, but I think like, and again, I also don't think you should control people. Like if she wants to starve herself, I don't recommend it, but I don't think we can control that. So, and I know, so how does my logic? So you say the abortion pill, you say it indirectly harms the fetus,
Uh,
right?
I don't 100% think it's indirect. I think it does. I'd have to fully look into it, but I think most for the most part, all the pill does is remove the fetus's ability to use your resources, like use your nutrients. But
Yeah.
I could be off
Hmm.
on that, but I'm pretty sure that's all it does. Yeah, it just the first dose of it just blocks the pregnancy hormone,
Yeah, there's
which
two
supplies.
pills. There's
Yeah, so
like,
the first dose just blocks the pregnancy hormone. The second pill just expels the uterus after it's already died. So yeah, so
yeah.
essentially it's all the abortion pill is doing is cutting off the resources. So it's just indirectly killing it. If the fetus was able to
Mm.
survive on its own, it wouldn't die.
Okay.
So would you be
Um,
okay with the abortion pill? Because it's almost exactly the same as just not eating.
no, because like if you have a child and you starve the child, are you killing the child? Yes. But oh, I know what you're gonna say. You're gonna say the mother's starving herself.
Yeah, it's all she's
But it's
doing is not letting the fetus use her resources, which you agree is something that we can't control if she just stops eating. It's the exact same if she just takes the first pill, she just stops the fetus from taking her resources.
right, but the pill. Mm. Okay, fair point. I mean, I don't think like starving yourself, I still feel like it affects the mother, whereas the abortion pill just affects the fetus.
I don't think that
So
people should
that's
starve themselves, and I don't think people should do
I
unsafe
know.
methods of abortion either. And personally, I
Yeah.
think that like if they want the child, like there are plenty of people who have abortions that don't want to, but they're forced to due to like socioeconomic reasons. I think that's wrong as well. I think you should be able to fully have the choice of what you do in a pregnancy. Just
Right.
so like your line you said was up to like 5 weeks. The pill can be up to 10 weeks. So would you say that you're okay with abortions utilizing the pill? So anything 10 weeks and prior, that's okay, and then anything after that would be we wouldn't you wouldn't be okay with that in your book.
Yeah, but your line is 21 weeks anyway. So
Well, yeah,
why
because
bring up
I
a
because I value subjective human consciousness. So I needed to come up to a specific point in the brain development before I start considering it a person, and then we can talk about prioritizing its life. But prior to that, I don't care what happens to a body, and it's just a body prior to that. There's no person in there.
bah. I mean, personhood's subjective, so that's that you're free to your opinion, but
I don't
to some
necessarily think
people,
it's subjective. I think we're pretty consistent as a species that we value consciousness and we don't really value like just bodies. Hence why we end up with the brain dead conversation. When you're brain dead and your consciousness is no longer there, we'll just we'll just throw it away. And I like a question I would ask you is like, let's say I take your brain and put it in a robot, and now your body still exists and it's still operating, like I hook it up to machines or whatever and your body's still alive, but now
mhm.
all your memories, all your consciousness is in a robot. Which one is really you?
Uh, um, I mean, the body has memory. Like even without the consciousness, like we have reflexes, we have things that we react to unconsciously, like you said, like without conscious awareness. So there's a huge part of like deep brain unconsciousness that's still part of us. And
So
I would
reflex is
just I
not
was
memory though. Reflex is your nerves reacting to stimuli.
yeah,
That's
but
not
that's still
memory.
I'm more than my memory. So if you lose your memory, do you
No,
lose?
because you still have a subjective conscious experience. What I'm saying is if
Mm-hmm.
all of that, your consciousness, your memories, your thoughts, all of that was put in a robot, we would consider the robot to be you. Right? We would say you are the independent thoughts that you have. You're not the body that those thoughts operate. Because like I
Mm-hmm.
cut off my arm. My arm's not me. It was a piece of me, but my arm's not me anymore, right? Because the
Right.
arm's not conscious. But if the arm all of a sudden gets up and starts talking, I would say that arm is now its own it's its own person, right? If that arm starts
Right.
talk, so for me, personhood's not really subjective. We're pretty consistent about it being consciousness.
I would say it's like brain activity. Like a person that's brain dead, it's not because they're not conscious. It's not because they're asleep. It's because there's absolutely no chance of brain activity. There's no neurons firing, like the person's like brain dead. So I don't think it's literally it's consciousness. And like you said, like the way you're saying consciousness, I like we're not conscious when we're asleep, but I guess you view that as some level of consciousness. Like there's 5 levels of consciousness actually. Let me look it up. So there's consciousness awareness, there's subconsciousness,
Well,
there's
I'm very consistent. I think it's the subjective conscious human experience. So if
okay.
you're the
Okay.
reason we say subjective is because some people experience consciousness in different ways. But as long as you're experiencing that consciousness and you are human, right? I would
Mhm.
grant you all of the rights that every other human gets. But the second there is no ability for future consciousness anymore, the second that one is gone, because you can have past, you can have present, but the second
Mhm.
future is fully gone, right?
Mhm.
Then I don't grant you anything. I think actually I would say present is probably the only one that you don't need. As long as you had past and have the ability to have future, you're fine. But if you don't have past,
Yeah, so
I wouldn't
that's
count it.
that's brain death, right? When there's no chance of future consciousness.
Yes, brain death.
That's
You have zero chance of your consciousness
okay,
coming back.
then
That's
we
why we
we
pull the
agree.
plug.
Right. So I but the fetus isn't brain dead.
Well,
So
in its state prior to 20, like 20, some people will give 20, but like even conservatively, if I say prior to 20 weeks, the cerebral cortex, the frontal lobe where your consciousness exists, hasn't formed yet. The consciousness is
mhm.
not there. So you have the ability for future, but then that's just becomes a potential argument. We're just saying that because you potentially will get that consciousness, we should protect you. But I don't really care much about potential consciousness. I care about what the fetus is in its current state.
Okay, so I think where we're having a lack of miscommunication is you're saying you um when you no longer have the possibility of consciousness, then you don't have rights, which is brain death, right?
Well, I've said if you don't have past consciousness or future consciousness, you would need both. So as
Oh,
soon
okay.
as a baby's born, it has past consciousness. Like the
Mhm.
second, or even like if you want to go the second it hits 22 weeks, like conservatively, it's got past consciousness. Now, if that past consciousness is there, we want to respect its ability for present and future. But the second it loses its ability to future, that's when we remove. That's when we don't care what we do. But like if you don't have that past, then you don't exist yet. There's no you, there's no person, there's no it's just you aren't even a concept yet.
Okay, okay. So you don't value brain activity, you value consciousness.
Yeah, I don't value just brain activity because there are people who have just brain activity but aren't conscious. It's like what
Okay.
hydrocephalus whatever it is. You because you can have brain
Hydrocephalus.
activity from your brainstem, but your brainstem doesn't make you conscious. But your brainstem can keep your lungs going. It can do a whole bunch of other stuff even when your consciousness is gone.
So you don't think people with just a brainstem deserve to live?
I wouldn't grant them rights. They just have a brainstem. I think their rights go solely to the parent. Like if the person's born with just a brainstem, but there's no person there. If you just have a brainstem, you're not a person. The person doesn't exist. So again, I just don't
I
care what
see.
happens to a body.
I mean, I've heard of cases. I don't know if you've heard of it. I forget the name actually, but I've apparently it's possible to
I
exist
know
with
who you're
just a
talking about, and
brainstem.
I think that it was
Yeah.
very cruel of those parents to keep that child alive and dealing with pain. Like all it is
Oh.
it's living, it's suffering. And like it has no it doesn't know where it is, it doesn't know who people are, it doesn't know any of that.
Wait, how do you know?
Because that's how the brainstem works.
So wait, so you don't so you agree that consciousness is like so you've never experienced what that person or that being, I guess, you don't think they're a person, but you think they're suffering?
Well,
Is there
yeah,
any
because
like
you don't.
studies to show that?
Yeah, there are studies on like hydrocephaly and like how the brainstem works. But what you have to
Mm.
understand, right, is that and I'm using suffering loosely, like suffering in the way an ant would, right? Ants don't understand when you pull their legs off. They have no concept
Ants
of
are
anything. They
conscious. I
Wait,
mean,
hold on.
technically,
Hold on.
technically,
Ants are
they're
not
aware.
ants are not aware, right? Ants run almost exclusively off of instinct and pheromones. What I'm saying is when it comes to
Depends on your definition of consciousness. But go on.
well, when it comes to a brain stem, you can have a brain stem and still feel some levels of pain. You can have a brain stem and have your lungs doing all of that. Now imagine feeling consistent pain, but never being able to conceptualize what that pain is. So if I stub my toe, I can go in my head, I stub my toe, it hurts right now, it will stop hurting in the future. Now imagine
Mm-hmm.
feeling pain all the time because he was in pain all the time because of how strenuous it was for him to breathe, things like that, and having no ability, no, like it doesn't even exist. Your ability to go, this is painful, this will end. That doesn't even exist. Your brain doesn't even do that. It can't even do
Well,
that.
if he's not conscious and he doesn't have any subjective experience, then you shouldn't care, right?
I don't.
If it's okay, so how is it cruel when it's you don't consider him a
Well,
person?
wait. I think stuff can be cruel, and like I said, ants don't have consciousness, right? But I would think if you just sat at an anthill pulling legs off of ants all day, you're probably being cruel. Like there's a difference between being cruel and like it's different when you're a body that's no, I guess no, yeah. There you can be cruel. Like oh, here let me explain. Somebody's brain dead. I think pulling the plug is fine. But if you went into the room and stabbed them 37 times in the chest, I think you're going. It's a little excessive, right? So I would
Yeah,
still,
that
I
would
would
just
still say like, but no, I think that people who don't have consciousness, like it doesn't exist in them, like they have like hydrocephaly or whatever it is, and it has to be like severe because there are some cases where you have it and you still have parts of your brain and those brains can form later if they put in like a
hmm
stint, I think it's what it's called. But if you physically only have a brain stem, it is quite literally cruel to keep your body alive and dealing with pain. Suffering was, I guess, a bad word because you're right. You can only suffer with a consciousness, but dealing with that pain all day, that's just not that's
yeah,
not
no, I
okay.
hear you. But isn't the boy still alive? I
It
forget
depends
what
on
his
which
name
one.
is.
There was one that had hydrocephaly that still had pieces of his brain. So all they had to do was put in like a stint that opened, like his skull was just squishing. So it opened up his skull
Oh,
and then his brain continued to develop. But there's one that did not have a brain stem and he was kept alive via like external means. So he had like ventilators and all this other stuff that kept his body alive. But there was no boy. There was no like what was his name? It was like Trevor Waltrip or something. Trevor. There was
yeah, I
no
think that was his
Trevor.
name.
There was no Trevor. He didn't. He never existed in the first place. Now his parents like to say, well, he recognizes when we walk in a room, or he does this, or he does that. Now they may be seeing his eyes reacting to changes in his surroundings, but there's no one there. You physically can't be when you don't have a brain and you just have a brain stem. It's like
Right.
impossible.
Well, this is kind of gonna go into like spirituality, I guess, and like souls, because some people would argue like um, there's somebody there, but I'm not going to even touch that subject. But
Yeah, I don't.
no,
I
I
don't
hear
believe
what
in
you say.
souls, so
Like,
I don't.
yeah, I hear what you say about brain activity and all that. But yeah, I would still say like I think my limit is still gonna be 5 weeks.
It
I
just
because I
feels
just value.
inconsistent after everything we've talked about.
hmm I know, but like the starvation one,
I think 10 keeps you very consistent.
the starvation one got me. I'm not gonna lie. That was kind of like because that's like her doing it to her body, and I can't really control that. The starvation one was a good point, but I
Well, like I
would
said,
still
so with the pill,
say
because the pill
again.
just makes a part of her
hmm
body cut off a hormone. So that part of her body doesn't produce that hormone anymore, and thus the fetus will die. It's still her really only affecting her body. So that's why now I think if you have a 10 week, if you extend to 10 weeks, you're being incredibly consistent in your view of like she can engage in ways that'll affect her body, but not ways that will directly affect the fetus's body.
So wait, if you what if you said if I extend it to 10 weeks, then I'm not consistent?
No, then you would be consistent. 5 weeks isn't consistent. 10 weeks would be consistent.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say anything right now because I really want to see if that's even ever happened, to be honest. So if it has happened, I guess then I would have to extend it.
Well, wait.
But
Why does it have
I
to
would just
happen if it's like why does it have to have happened already when the ability for it to happen exists?
is there even the ability for it to happen?
Yeah, you could
Let me
absolutely.
quickly
What and
search this real quick.
what about like there are certain foods that can cause you to miscarry. Like there are berries that apes take in order to like miscarry. Monkeys will take it. So what about those? What if she cuz she's still only affecting her body?
Okay, so how would we police that? Because there's certain like sushis that can cause people to miscarry, I heard. So I I I don't understand how. I hear what you're saying, but I agree with you. I don't know how we would like
I mean, you
control
could
that.
police whatever you want as if you make your police fascist enough, you could theoretically police whatever the hell you wanted. I'm just asking.
Mhm.
I'm just saying, like, if the concept of allowing them to do things that happen to their body that will kill the fetus, but it's not directly affecting the fetus because it's only affecting them. If that concept is something that you feel should not be policed, then I would say that you to be consistent, you should feel that same way about the abortion pill.
Abortion pill only affects the fetus, though.
No, it affects the woman. It stops the woman's body from producing a specific hormone that the fetus needs. So it's not
Yeah,
affecting the
so
fetus, it's affecting her.
but it's expelling the fetus. Like it's
The
the
second one expels the fetus after the fetus is already dead. Because if it stays in there, it can still it might still grow, and then you have an ectopic pregnancy, and then it's a whole different issue. It just expels it after it's already died.
okay. Um all right. I see where you're saying. I'm still not going to concede. Let me do some research on that
Okay.
first. I hear you. I hear your points. You made good points, but I'm just going to leave it at that. We'll just have to leave it at that.
All right. Well,
I don't have anything else.
before I leave, can I just what does your bio mean?
Oh, don't know.
People are people are think it means something really bad. So I figured I would ask
Does
if you
it
want
do
to
you think it do
clarify.
you what do you think it means?
Well, people think it means kill all black men.
Oh, okay. Um it has to do with black men, but it doesn't ask on what it means. It's
What
not
does
to
it
do with
mean?
I have a different live where I discuss it. But it doesn't mean kill all black men. Okay? You guys can rest assured that's not what it means.
You didn't seem too
Okay.
worried about people thinking it means that though.
Well, it's because like it's a whole different topic. It's about like misogynoir and like what's happening in the USA, but I'm not saying kill all black men, please.
Can I just ask?
Okay.
I need this for my own sanity. Can you just possibly just tell us what the acronym means? Because I'm now really thrown for
Don't
a
worry.
loop.
Listen, no, I can't do this because I already promised everybody I would make a live like dedicated to that, explaining it because
I
I
don't even
made
need the acronym explained. Just what the words mean.
I'll do that in a different live. I'll do that in a
Miss,
different
we aren't
live.
gonna be here on a. We're here right now, really worried. It's so
Sorry,
all you
the
have to do is
comments
tell
are
us what the
sending.
words mean.
Guys, I've had this account for a long time, and it means Google. Guys, Google KABM. Just Google KAB,
I, when I Google
and that's all I'm gonna
KABM, I'm
say.
all I'm getting is "Keep America Beautiful of the Midlands."
Oh, what? No, no, don't Google KABM. Just Google KAB.
KAB.
I'm gonna dedicate a different live. I'm sorry, Jovan. You're a great debater, but I'm not gonna spoil it for everybody. Um, I'll just leave it there.
Okay.
Um,
I mean, I just see it
thank
means
you.
"kill all boys." Okay, I'm
Oh,
just gonna
it
check
doesn't
out.
mean. That's not what I'm saying. It doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that.
You're not you're not
It
explaining it
does.
either. So,
It
okay.
doesn't mean. It doesn't mean kill all boys. Please. I have
Okay.
brothers. I have fathers. Please don't. Yeah. I'm gonna get someone.
All right.
Are there even other
Nope.
people in the request?
Sure thing. You have a good one, I guess.
You too.
Sure thing.